Well, good morning, everyone. And today, of course, we're going through a little bit on warehouse management for food and beverage. And really what we're going to focus on today, as soon as the slide shows, is, well, we've done the introductions, but a little bit of the basics around WMS, very specifically for the Dynamics 365 and the Business Central applications, right? So we're talking primarily about, the old NAV, the old NAV, and also Business Central. So we'll go through that and give you some background on, how you can use Business Central as a WMS solution. Even if you're running something else, you can use Business Central as your WMS. And then, we'll go through sort of the basics within Business Central, and then we'll talk about barcoding, and we'll go through a bit of a demo related to barcoding and how that could, also improve those warehouse and retail operations. Probably going to be in the 60 to 90-minute range here for this. If you do have any questions during the session or at the end, there's a Q&A panel in the Zoom meeting there. Just enter your questions there, and I'll do my best to either answer them as we go through the session or at the end. All right, with that, let's get started. So a little bit about us. Now, DMS Companies is sort of the overall group of companies, but really, today I'm here as a sort of part of InsightWorks. InsightWorks being the application provider that works with Optimus to deliver these warehouse and shipping solutions and those sorts of things. All right, so we've been around for over 10 years now, and we work globally. So we're based in Canada, as Hector said there, but we work in the U.S., mostly North America, some Latin America, Europe. Oops, what the heck happened there? All right, so mostly North America, but Europe, everywhere else. And again, we work with Optimus to drive these solutions. Now, again, any questions, let me know. But with that, let's jump right in and start talking about how Business Central works with WMS. So Business Central is actually a WMS solution. It has all the capabilities, or a lot of the capabilities you need to actually run your warehouse from within Business Central. Right now, the idea behind Business Central itself, or NAV, if you're coming from sort of the NAV or Navision environment, it has the same sort of capabilities. And it's intended to run as a paper-based WMS. So if you're in a situation where you don't want to do barcoding, you don't want to sort of, extend that WMS to do, more capable, more fancy things, pardon me, there are actually very good options within Business Central out of the box to use as a warehouse management solution. And this screenshot down here, I'm going to jump in a moment and give you a bit of a demo of that. The screenshot sort of illustrates some of the options you can set. And there's some very basic options that you can set, like you can leave all of these checkboxes here off, and then it runs like, a very basic ERP system that just got some inventory management, or you can start turning on these checkboxes to turn on more and more advanced warehouse functionality. And then it does have a checkbox at the bottom called directed put away and pick, and that gives us fairly advanced warehouse management capability. But again, all sort of paper-based stuff that we're dealing with there. All right. So when you're looking at Business Central and you want to set up warehouse management within Business Central, let me just back up. There is this option here called bin mandatory. That's going to be your first decision point. So if you're not using Business Central for warehouse and you want to start doing that, you're going to want to decide, do I need bins or not? Okay. And we'll talk about that in a sec too, but first is do I need bins? Then it's, do I need warehouse documents? In other words, do I want to segregate the warehouse activities from the purchasing and sales activities and things like that? And then finally, enabling that advanced warehousing, which gives you a lot more capabilities, which is fairly typical in the food industry because it gives you things like zones. So you might have a cooler zone or a freezer zone, allergens, non-allergens, those types of things. And so in the food industry, this advanced WMS, which we call directed put away and pick in Business Central, gives you all those capabilities, right? So you can have the system enforce. So this product goes in the cooler, and this product has to go on this side of the warehouse because it's got allergens, and this product has to go somewhere else. So that's that directed put away. It's very intelligent about how it works with the products that you're bringing in or shipping out. Okay. Now, let's go back to bins for a sec. if you're not using bins today, you don't have a lot of control probably in your warehouse. So bins will control inventory by bin location. So what that means is, without turning bins on, I can go into the system and I can see, oh, product A, maybe I've got eggs or something like that. Yes, they're in cooler one. Well, cooler one might be huge. I don't know where they are in cooler one. Or I could say it's in cooler one, slot A. And I go in there and they're not there, but I'm supposed to have a whole bunch in stock. I don't really know where those things are. I've just got an informational field that says, this is where this product might be. That's, again, if we don't turn on bins. If we turn on bins, we now have the ability to find out exactly where that product is throughout the warehouse. So I could have some in cooler one, some in cooler two, some somewhere else, and it will tell me exactly how many I have in stock and where that stock is located, and the quantity at each location within the warehouse. Okay, so it does really help, because when I send somebody out to pick some product, it'll send me to the exact bin, the exact location they need to pick that product from without them wandering around trying to find it. It's also very handy if you have a lot tracking turned on. So again, that's fairly common in foods, where you want to track the lot numbers, the batch numbers of the product that's coming in and out. And you can set it up so that I know exactly which lot numbers are in which bin within the system. So if I get a recall, I know, okay, this product is in bin A, B, and C, and that's where I can go and grab those specific lot numbers. Or if you're trying to pick the oldest product first, so the product that's going to expire first, having the bins turned on allows us to send the pickers to the right locations to pick the oldest product first, instead of just randomly choosing product that's on the shelf. So in the foods industry, especially if you're dealing with lot numbers, turning on bins is usually a very good idea. Now, if you're a smaller environment, that may not be necessary. Maybe it's really easy to figure out where everything is, and you don't want to go the full bin route. And there's no problem with that. You can still use the WMS capabilities with that. You just lose some of those capabilities, for sending you to a specific location, those sorts of things. All right, so that's the first decision you need to make. Do I need to use bins or not? And then after that, you make some other decisions. Now, within Business Central, again, it starts with a very basic solution all the way up to a fairly advanced option. And choosing the documents is another decision you need to make. And that, when I say document, what that means is I can have a sales order. A sales order is a document, right? In the system, we call that a document. And I could be using that to do my picking. So I just print out a copy of the sales order as a pick ticket or a packing slip or whatever you're using, and they run out, they grab the product and they ship it. Or I print a copy of the purchase order for receiving or something like that. So those are what we call inventory documents. And that means the warehouse sort of can see the sales orders, they can see the purchase orders, they can see all those sorts of documents. Most of the time, we don't want that. Most of the time, we want the inventory or the warehouse people to not see a sales order or not see a purchase order, those sorts of things. So what we do is we turn on the warehouse documents, and the warehouse documents give us a few different options. The first thing it does is allows us to combine multiple, what we call source documents, those sales orders or purchase orders, on a single document. And that's very handy, if you're, let's say you're a foods distribution center and you're picking for a number of stores. Well, you might have gotten a few different transfer orders or purchase orders for those stores over the course of a couple of days. You can combine all of those orders onto a single picking sheet so that you pick everything all at once. Or you can, if you're receiving a number of different products from a vendor, right, you've put in 3 or 4 different purchase orders and they're all arriving at the same time, I can combine those purchase orders into a single document in the warehouse to receive it. And that also means the people in the warehouse, the receivers and the shippers and the pickers, those types of people, do not see the source document. They don't see the sales order. They don't see the purchase order. They never have to touch it. They don't really even have to know it exists. They're just dealing with these warehouse documents, as we call them. The other thing they do that's really important and good for larger distribution centers is the ability to do 2-stage picking, two-stage receiving, those types of things. So what I mean by that is, on receiving here, as it says on this bullet point, if I'm receiving everything, I can receive it all into stock into a QC hold area, right, into my staging area at receiving. And that stock, it's in stock, but it's not available for me to ship it until somebody does an activity to put that product away or to say it's past inspection or whatever you like. So that's great for sort of inspection type stuff. If you're receiving, produce and things like that, and you need somebody to check it over before it gets moved into the warehouse, that's great because we receive it, we know we have it, QC comes along, they check it, and then I put it away. Or if I'm just, busy in the morning receiving, pallet after pallet of product, I just receive it into the one area. And then later on in the afternoon, I move all of that into the warehouse and put it away. And the same thing with shipping, I can go out there as a picker, I can go through the warehouse, pick everything, grab it, drop it off at shipping. And now somebody else takes that, packages it up or palletizes it to ship it out the door. So warehouse documents, for the most part, in food warehouses are typically what we would do. And this is really where the WMS, the W in WMS comes from, right? We want to enable those warehouse functions. Now, one quick note on that is that, if you don't want to turn any of this stuff on, you don't have to. And you might not want to turn some of this stuff on if you're in a environment like a retail environment. Maybe you have a warehouse, a distribution center that's shipping product to your own stores. Well, I can still use all of these capabilities that we talked about, where I can have, receiving documents and those sorts of things. But in a retail environment, you don't want to turn on bins. You don't want to turn on all of these WMS capabilities. So you do have that flexibility in Business Central to have some locations like your stores not have much of that WMS capability turned on, or maybe not any of it turned on. And other locations like a warehouse, you have it all turned on, right? And anything in between. Maybe you have a smaller location that you don't want any of the warehouse functionality, but your larger locations you do, right? So it's very flexible in that regard. All right, so with that, let's go in and after all that talking, let's actually see what that kind of looks like in Business Central. So this is Business Central. This is the cloud version here that I'm logged into. And if you're coming from sort of the older versions, it'll look a little different. You might have a Windows application instead of the web browser, but a lot of the functionality is the same. And what I'm in here as, this is a role center, and I'm in here as a shipping and receiving person for the warehouse. And so on this gives you a little idea of what we can track within Business Central. So we've got all the orders that are going out today, so I can see how many shipments are supposed to go out today, how many receipts are going to come in today, how many pick tickets are out there. So these are all the things that I want to send out to the employees to pick, and all of those sorts of things are in here. This movements I didn't mention earlier, but we also have the ability to move product around within the warehouse based on where it's needed. So that's, if you're familiar with warehouse terminology, that's kind of bin replenishment. What that allows us to do is say, okay, we've got several pallets of some bulk product sitting in our overstock area. I want to automatically have the system tell me to move that into my picking area when my stock in the picking area gets low. Okay, so that's these movements. So we've got a little dashboard here that shows me all the details about what's going on within the warehouse. And then we have the ability to go in there and, of course, create those pick documents. So I'm just going to open up a pick document here to show you what it looks like. And this is the location that we're in. So in Business Central, all their warehouses are different colors. So we've got all these different warehouses. I've only got picks for the one warehouse. And if we open up one of these pick documents, we can kind of see what the system has generated for us. So it's, this is just a pick number. We can assign it to a specific employee. And then down here is everything that I need to pick for this particular shipment. And in this case, because we're using the WMS, we have the ability here to combine multiple sales orders on the same pick document. So you can see here, we've got sales order 1, we've got sales order 2, sales order 3, all in the same pick document. So things like that really help improve your productivity. You can go in there and you can combine all these orders so that the person is only going through the warehouse once instead of having to go through once for each of these sales orders. And you can even get more fancy here. what we're looking at here is a fairly simple pick, but we can also do this by zone. And what that means is we could have taken, maybe sales order 3 or something like that, and broken that up into multiple picks. So we have, for sales order 3, we have certain people picking from the cooler, we have other people picking from the freezer, and we have other people picking from dry goods. And then they pick all of those, and we recombine all of that at shipping to ship out a single order, even though we've automatically split that pick ticket up into multiple zones. Okay, so that's what a basic pick ticket looks like. Now, if you're using the paper-based capabilities, at this point, what I would do is simply come in here, print this out, and this would show up on the printer in the warehouse. And, the employees would use this to actually, execute that pick document and come back into Business Central and record everything that they've done in here so that we know what was actually picked. Okay, so that's a little bit on that. Now, let me back up a sec. I should have actually done this first, but I'm going to show you all of those warehouses because I mentioned we were in the white warehouse there. So let me open up what we can do to configure a warehouse and some of the things you need to think about. All right, so I did mention, these check boxes here. And what these do is they turn on those documents that I talked about, the warehouse documents. And this is one of the big decisions. So again, the two big decisions are, do you use bins or not? And then do you use any of the warehouse documents? Again, that's going to depend on how you work. If your picker is the shipper, you might not want to turn on that two-step picking process. You might want the picker to just go out, pick everything, come back to shipping and ship it out the door without, having to tell anybody they've picked it first. So there's a number of decisions you can make there, but it's very flexible in what you can turn on. The other thing that I talked about was the bins. So when we have this advanced warehousing turned on, we have the ability to define those zones I talked about. So, I've got some standard ones here that come with the Business Central demo data. So I've got some storage areas, I've got, QC areas, things like that. But this is where you would come in and define things like your coolers and your freezers and those sorts of things. And the system will automatically tell you where to put product based on the zones that you define. And then we've also got things like, warehouse class would be, things like freezer or cooler, and then any special equipment, right? So for the bulk storage area, maybe this is all the shelving at the top of my rack. In order to get at any of the product here, I need that special equipment. So I need a lift in order to get there. And we can use that when we generate the picks to decide, do we, combine all of the items that need to lift into a single pick, so that I'm not, picking something, then having to get a lift and picking something else and getting a lift again. We can do all of that from within here. So very flexible in how all this configuration works. Okay, so that's the basics of the configure. Oh, actually, I lied. I wanted to show you one other thing there in the locations. Again, if you've got something like a store, like this blue location is a store, we don't have anything turned on. So what that means is from the warehouse, I can pick everything, ship it to the store, and at the store, they can just receive that transfer order and then put it on the shelf without using any of the WMS capability. Now, as I'll show you in a moment, they can use barcoding in the stores and things like that as well. So you do have some level of inventory and warehouse management with barcoding and mobile devices and things like that in the store and for deliveries and those types of things. But you can set it up so that it doesn't need any of that capability. Okay. And then going back to the one that I'm working in, I will also mention a few other things here. This pick according to FIFO, I mentioned that earlier, where if you wanted to pick based on the first expired lot number, you can enable that and the system will tell you to pick the oldest lot number first. And that way you're not going to be stuck with expired products sitting on the shelf, because we can force the pickers to pick the oldest product. Now, there are facilities, if you want to allow them to override that, like they can't find the lot number you sent them to, or when they get to that lot number, it's already expired or gone bad, they can change that. But this really does help us identify which product needs to be picked and where in the facility it is. Okay. And then there's a few other things here I won't necessarily get into for shipping. We can define all sorts of shipping information for your freight or small parcel shipping, list all of the loading bays and all those sorts of things in the system. Okay. All right. Now, that's the basics. I'm just going to show you very quickly what we're working with here. So we've got a few items defined within this demo system. And I'm just going to go into the item list and have a look at some of those items. So these are the items that we're going to be dealing with, a few of the food items. And these are set up. Some of these have lot numbers associated with them, and some do not, right? So we're not going to track lot numbers for things like the apples and that sort of thing, but everything else we can. And so there is a question about traceability. There is full traceability on there. So for something like, if I'm receiving flour with a certain lot number, and I'll know exactly when I receive it, where it was put away in the warehouse if I turn on that capability. So let's actually just open this up. We're going to open this this guy up here, and we're going to go down and look at that traceability real quick. So what I've got this set up for, you can set up different levels of traceability within the system. So in a lot of cases, people just set up, this tracking only when you ship it. So we know which lot numbers we've shipped, but we might not care about which lot numbers we receive. Or you just set it up so you record which lot numbers you've received. This, the way I've got it set up, it records the lot numbers that I receive, and very specifically where those lot numbers are in the warehouse and who I've sold those lot numbers to. So if you get a recall on a lot number, I can type in that lot number and I can see exactly who I sold it to, who I received it from, how much I have in stock, where it is in the warehouse. All that traceability is available to me. Okay. And if you do have, things, well, actually, I won't get into that hazardous material, but that's the basics, right? So in here, we can come in, you can set up all your items. The shelf number again is where if you're not using bins, that tells me, hey, you've got 50 in stock. They might be in this location, but if I want to find out exactly where they are, what I will do is I'll actually look at where they are in the warehouse. So if I look at the bin contents, I can see it's this bin code that has that quantity in stock. Okay. All right. Now, that's the basics of sort of the Business Central configuration for warehousing. And, I didn't get too much into these documents because I'm going to go through those from the perspective of a warehouse worker, ideally using Barcode. All right, so let me go back here and we'll continue on with this. So the paper-based system can be cumbersome because if you have those warehouse documents enabled, it's not just simply printing out a sales order for the warehouse personnel to use. We've got we've got a shipment document we need to deal with. We have a pick document we need to deal with. We've got all these additional things we need to handle. So it can be cumbersome. And if you're dealing with lot numbers, you want that, if you want that traceability, having to write down the lot numbers you've picked and things like that, that's very, very difficult, right? So everybody, in the warehouse is going to deal with that type of data, right? You've got your inventory, your lot numbers, you've got all of these things that you have to deal with. And knowing what you have in stock and what you don't and when it's shipped and all of that, that can really be a competitive advantage, right? If somebody phones up and says, hey, do you have this in stock? And you have to answer, no, I don't. But really, you have 2 pallets of them sitting and receiving. It's just nobody's handed in the paperwork yet. That's not a good situation to be in. You want to know exactly what you have, when you have it, those types of things. So the problem there is really matching up your physical warehouse with that virtual world in Nav or Business Central, right? So we want to keep those 2 things synchronized. If I receive something physically in the warehouse, I want to know immediately in Business Central that I actually have it, right? And quite often that doesn't happen. Quite often the inventory that shows up in your WMS or your ERP system is not the same as what you have in the warehouse, right? That's why you do cycle counts and inventory counts is to fix that. But ideally, you wouldn't have to do that. And the reason that inventory is mismatched is all sorts of reasons, right? People type in the data wrong, or they lose the paperwork, or it's just sitting on somebody's desk for a week and nobody knows you have that stock. All of those sorts of things. That can add up to a lot of money, especially if you're dealing with products with expiration dates. If I receive something and I forget to hand in the paperwork for a week, by the time somebody enters that into the system, that product might already be expired or close to expiry. Now I can't even sell it anymore just because somebody forgot to hand in the paper. In the meantime, maybe I've ordered more because I didn't realize I had a pallet of that sitting in stock, right? So it can be very expensive to deal with these delays and that mismatch between the warehouse and the WMS or the ERP system. So how do we deal? Well, actually, I've got one more thing. So these are the things I talked about earlier, right? all of these issues are going to cost you money. The poor customer service is a big one, especially in things where you've got a lot of inventory turns, right? In foods, you have a lot of turnover on the inventory. You need to know immediately what's going on. And if you don't, you're not going to get very good customer service. So the way we deal with that is with barcoding, right? There's lots of different technologies out there, RFID and barcoding and all sorts of stuff. But barcoding is really the simplest, the easiest way to do it. It's been around for over 50 years now. And it's what you use if you want to manage inventory better. It's barcoding. And the big deal with barcoding is that it does tie that physical world and that virtual world together, because everything I do, I'm going to scan a barcode, and that's going to send that information into the WMS so that we know exactly what happened on the warehouse is what's in the system. So now if a customer phones up, I know exactly what I have in stock. I know when I received it. I know when I shipped it, all of those sorts of things. And it's going to give us much better inventory accuracy, right? I'm not going to be able to receive the wrong product for the vendor, right? Maybe I ordered apples and they sent me pears or something like that. I'm not going to accidentally just look at the box and say, yeah, I got 2 boxes and receive it and have the wrong stock. I'm going to scan a barcode, or as I'll show you in a bit, we can actually read the text from packaging as well on these scanners. So with the right scanner, even if a box like a carton of apples or something like that doesn't have a barcode on it, I could read that lot number with the scanner. It'll read the text and just OCR it into the system. So you don't necessarily need barcodes on every product in order to use barcode scanners to receive or deal with that product. Okay, we can read text in a lot of cases, and we see that in food a lot, right? There's human readable lot numbers printed on the packaging. There's no barcodes, right? There might be a SKU on there, a UPC code on there, but the lot number is not barcoded. Well, we can deal with that. All right, so barcoding again is what we want to use. Now there's a few different options for barcoding. And of course, the ones that we're going to talk about today, or the ones you're going to see today, are either the free version, the WMS Express, which is, you can use it in the advanced warehouse and a retail outlet, whatever you like. And you don't have to register, you don't have to do anything. You talk to Optimus about it, but you plug it in and you can use it, and you've got a mobile WMS available for you. You just need the devices. And then there's a more advanced version that you can get as well. And again, talk to Optimus, they can help you out with that. That gives you a whole lot more capability. All right, so that's what we're going to go through today. So when you're looking at the WMS solution, first of all, you decide on what software you want. And then after that, what you need to do is decide on what type of scanners you're going to use in the facility. So there are a lot of choices for the scanners. The ones you're going to see today are things like this, but you can use a tablet. So a lot of people use a tablet with a little Bluetooth or USB scanner like this on the tablet to pick, right? So I have a pick cart or a forklift, I can use a tablet. Or if I'm receiving, maybe I just have somebody with a tablet scanning pallets or something like that. So this is fairly common as well. But in a warehouse environment, you want this. Now there are phones that you can run, like you can use this on a phone and use the camera to do the scanning and things like that. But those don't last. They tend to break very quickly. They're not ergonomic, and scanning with the camera is pretty slow. So they're good if you're doing proof of delivery, or if you've got outside salespeople that need to go through a customer's store and scan or something like that. Phones are great, but otherwise you want something a little better than that phone. All right, so that's a little bit on that hardware there. Now, when you're choosing that hardware, there's a few things, and this is important. The ruggedness is important, because if you're in foods and you do have freezers and coolers and things like that, you want to make sure you get a device that will work in those temperature ranges. If you need to wash them down periodically, if you're using them in a place where it needs to get hosed down, that's important. So ruggedness in the food is important. The scan range probably less important, but what that allows us to do is scan pallets from a distance. So if I have a pallet on a top rack, or if I'm on a forklift and there's a pallet on the forks, I can scan, the right size of barcode. If I get a 2-inch square barcode, I can scan that from 40 feet away with the right scanner. So that long range scanning can be useful sometimes. And the camera, I'll show you here as well in a moment, is actually quite important when we talk about foods. because what that allows us to do is take photos of the product as we're receiving it or as we're shipping it. And so if I receive something and it's, poor quality or damaged or the wrong product, I can take photos of that while I'm receiving, and that automatically uploads and attaches against the purchase order. So now the purchaser has everything they need in real time to start a claim with a vendor or the carrier or whatever you need to do. Similarly, if you're shipping these products, if you're shipping pallets or whatever, I can take photos of all of those before it goes out the door. And again, they automatically attach to the shipment document in the WMS. And if there's a claim back to me with damaged product, I've got proof everything left in good shape. Okay, so that camera is very, very important in the food side. And then finally, the form factor and price. Form factor is just, do you need a pistol grip? Do you want something you can put in a pocket? Do you want something with a keyboard or something without? And then, how much do you want to spend on these? They range anywhere from, $500, $600 all the way up to, a few $1,000s, depending on the type of device you want to get. All right, so I won't get into this too much. Well, actually, one minor thing here. If you are using it for proof of delivery, so if you have your own trucks and you're dropping off the product and you want people to sign the screen, you might want to get something that has mobile data instead of Wi-Fi, so that you have access to the system in real time while you're in your truck or anything like that. Okay, so that's the only other thing. Now, we've got the software. You choose on the WMS solution that you want to use. You've got the hardware decided on. The last thing is the barcoding. So, pretty much any barcode out there, these scanners will read any barcode format out there. Doesn't matter what is in that barcode. So quite often now you're seeing, GS1 barcodes with the item number, lot number, expiration date. They're all in that one barcode, which is great because we scan one barcode, we know the lot number, we know the expiration date. We've got all of that detail right there in one scan. If you're doing your own barcoding, like if you do want to put your own barcodes on product, these data matrix barcodes, actually these are showing up in food, in dry goods and things like that quite a bit now, right? Especially in things that show up in the pharmacy or any sort of things like that. But these square barcodes here hold a lot of information. So if you want to do your own barcodes, or if you're receiving product with these barcodes on it, you can use these. And this little one here, that's maybe 1/2 inch square when I print that out. And that can hold about 40 characters worth of information. So again, item number, lot number, expiration date, all of those sorts of things we can fit in one barcode. And where they're very useful is if you're building up pallets, right? So if I build up a pallet, I can print a barcode like the one above. That's 1.5 inches square, which is still a pretty small barcode. And I can read that from 40 or 50 feet away with the right scanner. So for labeling pallets and things like that you're packaging yourself, this is the ideal format. But again, we don't really care what barcode format is there. All of these scanners will read pretty much any barcode format that you can think of. All right. So with that, let's jump in and look at what the WMS looks like from a barcoding perspective. So I'm going to go back here into Business Central, but we're going to show a couple of other things. First thing I'm going to show over here is this is the screen from a device that I've actually got in my hand. And then let's just show this. Here is the actual device. So that's my hand. Hello. And this is the device that I'm holding. So as I touch this and move it around, you'll see it update on the screen here. And this is a pretty typical style of device. This is a Honeywell, what we call an ultra rugged device. This one does have that camera in it. This is a long range scanner, so it can scan about 40 or 50 feet away. It's got the physical keypad and all that kind of stuff. So this is pretty typical. And you can get these with a pistol grip, that just screws in here, and you can use it as a pistol grip. Here's an example of another device. This is a much lower cost device. So something like this is $600 or less. And, it's a nice little thing. You can fit it in your pocket. It's got a nice little keypad at the bottom, good scanner, all that kind of stuff. So that's another example. Oh, and this type of device also often fits in a wearable. So if you're doing, fast picking, this, it's kind of hard to see on the webcam, but this will slide over somebody's wrist. So this is a wrist holder. This just sits in there. And then I can use this hands-free. There's a little, this little scanner here goes over your finger, and you can walk around hands-free. So you can use two hands to pick up cartons and you just tap this little button on the side to scan the barcode. So that's another option in those types of environments where you might need two hands to be picking, cartons of produce or whatever, instead of using this. These kinds of guys, if you're doing that, quite often they'll be, you'll get a holster for them. So you just slip it in the holster real quick, pull it out when you need to scan, and that's it. And then just one last example here real quick. This is sort of a similar style of device to this one. The difference is this doesn't have a physical keyboard, and it's, this one you can use with mobile data. So this is a good one if you're sort of doing proof of delivery where you need people to sign off on the screen, or you're doing remote work. This will work just like a phone. So it'll take a SIM card, do mobile data, all of that kind of stuff, but it does have that scanner built in. It's a nice little device here as well. All right, now for that, let's talk about this. So this is the guy I'm going to be using to scan. And just to give you an idea of the barcodes I'm scanning, I already showed you those on the screen, but these are the barcodes I'm scanning, right? So, they can be very, very small. That's smaller than 1/2 inch square, and that's going to be my Apple's barcode. These other guys have lot numbers encoded in that barcode. But again, we don't really care what the barcode format is. It can be, sort of standard linear barcode format. And again, the GS1 barcodes with a lot number and expiration date and all that, that's what you want, because I've got one barcode to scan and I get all of that information in one shot. All right, so that's what we're going to be going through. Now let's talk a little bit about the WMS capabilities here. So some of these, again, are available in Business Central without getting scanners. If you want to do paper-based warehouse management from Business Central, no problem, you can do that. And it's a good place to start. Sometimes we recommend that. Start with the paper, get yourself used to, if you're not using bins and lot tracking and all that, get used to that. And once you are, then, graduate to a more robust solution that allows you to scan. And by the way, that more robust solution could be that free solution. There are free solutions out there. You grab that free solution and you start scanning and using it. And if you need more, you can go to the higher end solutions. So there is really an easy way to move from the basics all the way up to the more advanced. Now, on this device, I'll go through some of the capabilities that are available in Business Central for WMS and on the device. The inquiry modes, it allows me to scan a barcode and tells me what it is. So if I take one of those barcodes I just showed you and scan it, it's going to give me all the details about what's in that barcode and what product it relates to and those sorts of things. And this is what we use to drill down. If I'm having an issue somewhere in the system, I can use this to find out more information about that product. We've got the inventory count, and that's hugely important because, when you have, turnover, high turnover, especially in foods that are expiring, you're going to need a way to audit your inventory very, very quickly and easily. So this gives us the ability to, do cycle counts in the warehouse, to do full counts in the warehouse very quickly and easily with the handheld device. Now, receiving and put away, that's kind of what I talked about earlier, where I'm going to receive product, somebody's going to inspect it maybe, and then I'm going to move that into the warehouse and make it available for people to pick. And the same thing with picking. When I go to pick it, I'm going to pick everything and then I'm going to drop it off at shipping for somebody to palletize or box up and ship out the door. And then, if you're in food manufacturing, we also have the ability to do that production, the production activities from the handheld device or from within Business Central. So I can record what we've actually used to produce a product, and I can actually record the product that we've produced right out there in the shop floor. And typically these would be run on a tablet, by the production line or whatever, the mixing bowls or whatever you're using, and we can record exactly what we've produced from a device. Okay. Now, license plating down here, there's a few other things, but license plating down here is great when you're combining multiple products onto a single pallet or into a single box. So what this allows us to do is, if I'm going through the warehouse picking product for a shipment, so I've got a few cases of produce on there, I've got a few other things on there, I can record all of those lot numbers, all of those products, everything that's going on that individual pallet. And then I've got one barcode to scan for that pallet that references all of that product. So now when I get to shipping, I know how many pallets I have, I know the contents of each pallet, I can print a bill of lading, you could send an ASN, you can do all that type of thing just by scanning those items with the license plating. So it makes it very easy to generate those pallets. All right. Enough of that. Let's actually see what this looks like if I'm in the warehouse. So if I'm an employee in the warehouse, we'll start with receiving. I'll walk in, I'll open up my receiving application here, and this shows me all the purchase orders that I have in the system to receive against. So the idea is, I'm at the back door, I've got my vendor's packing slip in my hand, it has my purchase order number on it. So I choose the purchase order out of the list, or I type in, part of that purchase order, and it'll filter the list down to those POs, and I choose it and away I go. Or if the items are barcoded, I can scan an item and it'll bring up the purchase order that that item is on. In my case, I'm just going to tap the screen. And by the way, if you have a physical keyboard here, you don't ever have to really touch the screen, right? I can just arrow up and arrow down if you want to get to where I need to be. But I'm going to choose this purchase order here. And what it's going to do is it's going to open up and show me everything that I need to receive on that particular purchase order. So this shows me, how many I'm expecting to receive, and down at the bottom here, it tells me how many I've received so far on that purchase order. And there's all sorts of things you can do. If you want to show additional detail on the screen, you can make more detail available on the bottom. If I tap the top here, we've got this choose columns where I can show all sorts of additional information if I want on the screen. So it's fairly flexible and allowing you to choose what you want to see. And all of that data, again, is in Business Central, right? So really we're using Business Central or NAV, the thing that you're used to, or if you're not using it yet, you should be using. All of that information is stored back in the WMS, right? Now, in here, I've got a few different scenarios. Number one is, everything is barcoded. That's the ideal situation. If everything has a barcode on it, I can scan that barcode and receive it. If it's not barcoded, I don't have to have a barcode. I could just choose one of these lines, tap it, or use the arrow keys, hit enter, or if you don't have a physical keyboard, hit this change quantity menu here, and I could just enter the quantity and lot number and whatever else I need. So I don't have to scan a barcode to use a mobile device to record that. And the big advantage of that, even if you don't have barcodes, is it's real time, right? I just choose this and say, yeah, I got 50 kilograms, and that's it. It's in the system, it's done. But ideally, you want to be able to scan the barcode because that's going to give us a lot more capability. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to scan. What I'm going to scan? I'm going to scan this, just for fun, this cake mix barcode down at the bottom. That happens to be this last item on this PO. Okay, so you don't have to know what you're scanning. You can just scan a barcode and away you go. Well, and one last thing. If I do want to do my own barcoding, let's say, these guys here came in and they didn't have a barcode, I entered the quantity, I can actually go in and print barcodes myself. So if I do want to print my own barcodes to label a pallet or a case, I can do that from here as well. And I also mentioned that if you don't have barcodes and you don't want to print barcodes, there are devices available that have the ability to read the text off the cartons and use that instead of scanning a barcode. Okay, so it's exactly the same. I point this thing at the text, it'll read it in, it'll OCR it, and I don't have to barcode it, right? So that works in a lot of situations, primarily for lot numbers, but you can use that capability as well. All right, anyway, in this case, I am going to scan a barcode because, this cake mix has a GS1 barcode. It has all the information I need, or it's just a UPC code, and I'm going to scan it. And by the way, you can have different barcodes for cases, versus individual units versus pallets. So all those different units and measures. So if the vendor is shipping me something in a case pack, I can scan that case pack, or I can scan an individual box or whatever. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to scan that barcode. So scan that flower thing there. And what it'll do is it'll go out and it'll show me a picture of that item. And that's handy to verify that I scanned the right item. And especially if you're doing your own barcoding, you're going to want to be able to see, what it is you scan. Because if I scan something and it shows me a picture of apples and I've got bananas in my hand, I know I've got a problem with the barcode or what I'm doing. Okay. Now, what I did was it came up and brought in that lot number automatically. So that's a lot number off the packaging. If the packaging didn't have a lot number, or if the lot number was, just a printed number or embossed number or something like that, it would highlight this field. And I could manually enter the lot number. I could scan that other barcode for the lot number, or I could scan the text for the lot number, or I can have the system generate a lot number for me automatically, right? And not every item has to have a lot number. This specific item, this cake mix that I brought in here, that has a lot number required for it. We've said this item, when I receive it, I need to capture the lot number. You might have items that you never want to capture lot numbers for. That's fine. Okay. The other thing you can do here, if you do come in and you notice, you know what, this lot number, this particular product is terrible quality, nobody should be buying it, I can come in here and I can actually record quality information as well on this as I'm receiving it or after the fact. And I can also block it, which means that nobody else is allowed to do any transactions with that specific lot number until QC, somebody's come in and unblocked it for me. So we can do that receiving quality inspection as well to a certain extent on here. And this just has some very basic fields. You can add whatever information you want on the screen to capture for your specific environment. Okay. Now, the last thing I'll mention on here is, let's say, you know, this is coming in 20 packs, but maybe I want to receive 1 pallet, right? So I can come in here and I can choose a different unit of measure to receive it, right? So 1 pallet is the same as 20 packs. So I can receive it as a pallet or packs or pieces or whatever unit of measure is defined for that item. And again, based on the barcode I scan, it's going to bring in the right unit of measure for me automatically. But if I need to change it, I can right here. Okay, so this is all part of, you know, standard WMS capabilities within the facility. It's just going to make life a lot easier when I'm receiving to be able to scan something, indicate what it is I've received. And as soon as I did that, this is updated. So now if there's a customer service rep or you know, somebody on their order desk and they're talking to a customer, they know that we've got 20 of these things sitting and receiving immediately. As soon as I did that, no waiting. That's a big advantage. And because I scanned that barcode, we know we've received the right product and that we didn't accidentally receive a completely different type of mix when we brought that in. Okay, just for fun, let me do one more here. I'll do these apples just to show you what that looks like. So again, shows you the picture, and you can control how long that picture pops up for. And this is in kilograms. And you'll also notice this one doesn't require a lot number. We're not tracking the lot number on the apples. We're just bringing in the apples here. But quite often what happens when we're talking about produce and certain types of goods, you know, I've ordered 100 kilograms. That's what I'm expecting to receive. I just noticed my camera isn't really focusing very well on my scanner. Maybe it's because the paper was there. But anyway, you can see it on the screen beside me. But when we're receiving produce and things like that, quite often, you know, I ordered 100 kilograms. They might ship me 102 or 105 or 98. So I can actually under-receive. So I could receive 98 kilograms instead, or I can over-receive and say, you know, the purchase order only says 100, but they actually shipped me 105. And when I receive that, it's just going to say, hey, you know what? Are you sure? Like, did you enter it wrong or not? And if I say yes, it is going to allow me to over-receive that product. So now I've received 105 of these instead of 100. Okay, so that's very common in foods as well. All right, so those are the basics of receiving, right? Scan a barcode, enter a quantity, or if I don't have a barcode, just simply come in here, you know, hit the enter key on here, or hit the change quantity button, and enter the quantity that I've received, and that's it. Okay, so simple as that. And again, it updates the system in real time. The thing I mentioned earlier with the take picture, again, if I've got bad quality stuff or whatever, I can come in, take photos, and again, that automatically uploads and attaches into the system, and the purchaser has everything they need to start a claim with that receipt. All right, so that's a little bit on the receiving. Now, we'll talk very briefly about picking and inventory counts, because those are some of the key activities in the warehouse. So picking is very similar, right? I come in here, and the way it works is, you know, the pick tickets are generated from within Business Central. There's tools in there that say, you know, hey, I've got 100 orders in the system. What can I ship today? And it'll say, you can ship these 20 orders today, and it'll spit out one or more pick tickets for me to use in the warehouse to pick that product. So that makes it very nice and easy to decide what you need to do, you know, every couple hours, right? So maybe twice a day, you say, what can I ship now? And it'll give you a list of all the orders you can ship complete, all the ones you can ship partial, and all the ones that are back ordered. And so I run that, and it'll generate a pick document for me. And then that pick ticket, you know, quite often that's printed out in the warehouse. I pick up the piece of paper off the printer, I scan it, and it'll load up the pick for me, or I can just choose it from this list here. Or I can have it assigned to people, like certain people maybe always pick the cooler. So they'd only see the pick tickets for the cooler, and other people see the pick tickets for the dry goods, and other people see, different pick tickets. But in my case, I chose that. And now it's telling me everything I need to pick for that specific order. And again, if you want the description up at the top here instead of down here or whatever, that's fine. But this is telling me the bin, where I'm supposed to go to find that product, the product I'm supposed to find, and the quantity I'm supposed to pick. That's what they need to know. And there's a few different things you can do here. You can set it up to show only one item at a time. So they pick the first item, and then after they've done that, it shows them the next item, and so on and so forth. Just helps them walk through the warehouse one step at a time. This view is a little nicer because if I want to change how I pick, I can change the sort order. If I want to pick by item number or quantity or weight or whatever, I can change that sort order on here without doing anything in the system to change the way I'm going to pick this particular order. Okay. The other thing you can do, I'm just going to actually flip over to landscape mode here. This is nice if you have a tablet or something like that. It actually even works well on these screens here. You can set up what we call fact boxes. And the fact box allows us to do things like show comments on the pick document, pictures, any additional details you might need to know while you're picking this product. And you can just sort of double tap on this to make it full screen if you want to read it and that sort of thing. So this is kind of handy. Again, you can put this on the side like I've got here, or you can put it on the bottom when we're in portrait mode. And if you're on a tablet, you've got lots of real estate, so you can show a lot of information while you're picking. So we've got all those sorts of capabilities. Again, the idea behind this is to make life easier for the people in the warehouse so that they're not having to hunt for what they're supposed to do, so they know what they're supposed to pick, and it makes it very easy to actually pick it. The other side of that is we're making it easy for the people in the office to deal with what the people in the warehouse have actually done. And the way we do that is we force the people in the warehouse to actually scan what they've done. We're asking them to verify what they're doing. So when they go and pick this item down here, these bananas from this bin, we're going to ask them to scan the bin code to verify they picked from the right location. And they didn't just find a bunch of those things sitting in the receiving area, or maybe they're in the return vendor area. We're going to make sure they're picking from the right location in the warehouse. So that's the first thing I do. I walk up to the bin I'm picking from. I scan the bin code that I want to pick from, and it shows it to me at the bottom of the screen there. And now it knows that I am picking from the right spot. You don't have to do that, but if you do have the bins enabled, that's worthwhile because now we know they're doing what they're supposed to do. And then the next thing I do is I simply scan the item that I'm picking. So again, I scan the barcode, either at the bin or in the packaging or whatever, finds it, shows me a picture to make sure I am, I don't have apples in my hand, I actually have bananas in my hand, and then I enter the quantity that I'm picking. You can default this in so that I always have to type in a quantity, or what I've got, it just defaults to the quantity that I'm supposed to pick. I just hit enter, and that's it. I've picked that product. We know it's done. We know it's done properly, and we know our inventory is going to be accurate. Okay. If you're picking lot tracked items, I need to find a barcode here. If we're picking lot tracked items, it's basically exactly the same. I'm going to scan the bin I'm picking from, and then I'm going to scan the item I'm picking. Oh, actually, what bin do I have that item in? 0402. Just need to find a barcode with the right bin code. Well, it works exactly the same, right? I scan the item, the bin, or the bin, the item, and it'll automatically bring in the lot number of the product I'm picking. Okay. Now, the reason I can't do that right now is because I don't have the bin code to scan to pick one of these items with the lot number in it. So it would give me an error message, which is exactly what you'd expect to see, right? So I've scanned bin 0101. And if I try and pick the wrong product in that bin, even though I scan a barcode that does exist on this order, it says you're not allowed to do that because that item isn't in that bin. You're trying to pick an item where you're not supposed to pick it from. Now, I can correct that if I want. If I say, well, that's where I want to pick it from, I can come in here and I can change the bin or split the line, do all those sorts of things if you give the users permission to do that. And I can change this pick around to match the way I want to do it instead of the way the system is suggesting. Okay. But yes, lot numbers, if I've got the system set up to tell me exactly which lot numbers I'm supposed to pick, because I need to pick the oldest lot number, it'll show me all the lot numbers I need to pick on the screen. I would scan those lot numbers in. And again, if I find one that's bad, I could override it. But otherwise, what I need to do is scan in all the lot numbers it's telling me to pick. All right, so that's a little bit on picking. There's a few other things you can do here. Well, actually, here's a good example. That item that I scanned, and I got the error message, it said you're not allowed to pick that. I want to find out why. Maybe I was at a bin that was supposed to have quantity and it didn't, or something like that. Well, what do? These devices can be used as walkie-talkies as well. If you run Zoom or Teams or various apps, you can flip over and use this guy as a walkie-talkie. It's got a speaker and a microphone, and I could flip over to Teams or the walkie-talkie app, broadcast to everybody on my channel, and figure out what's going on with this product. Or if I don't want to talk to anybody else, I can just come in here and I just hit a hotkey on my keypad. You can also use the menu, and I'm going to drill down and find out all the detail about this item, right? So I can see, how many I have in stock and exactly which bins that is in, and the exact lot numbers and expiration dates in each location in the warehouse. So this is very handy. If I can't find that product, I could drill down, see where else I have it, and look at the expiration dates for those items and pick the oldest product to pick next. So it also gives me the ability to look at recent transactions. So if I can't find it, why is that? I can look at who did the last put away on that, or maybe there's another outstanding pick and that somebody picked, that person picked a whole pallet instead of a case or something like that, and I can chase them down and get my stuff back. Or maybe I have no idea what I'm looking for. I can come in there, I can hit show picture, and maybe that's just sitting on the shelf beside where it's supposed to be. I can grab it, move it over, and keep going. So it gives you that whole ability to find out more about what's happening in your warehouse to give you better control, better decision-making in the shop floor in the warehouse. All right, so that's a little bit on picking. It's really very simple. You go into the system, you say, what can I ship today? It gives you a list of all the things you need to pick by zone if you like, right? So freezer, cooler, warehouse, whatever you like. You go out there, you scan all the items you want to pick, or again, you could just come in here and manually select a line, hit enter, or use the change quantity menu up at the top here and manually enter a quantity without scanning. If you don't want to scan barcodes, that's fine too. But that way it's all real time. And that's picking, right? When I'm done, it's automatically set up in the system, like the order desk and the customer service reps. You know exactly what's going on, what's being picked, what hasn't. All that kind of stuff is all there real time. And then after I pick, I drop it off at shipping and somebody can palletize it. And well, actually, I didn't talk about that. So the palletizing, we can do in two places. I can do it while I'm picking, or I can do it while I'm preparing the shipment. And if I do it while I'm picking, what I would do is I would come in here, I'd say start license plate, or if I have a bunch of pre-printed pallet labels, I can scan an existing pallet label and start packaging everything on that pallet. So when I start that license plate, everything I pick goes on that pallet. And when I drop it off at shipping, now they know, yes, you've got 3 pallets that you just picked, and I know exactly what's on each pallet. I can now scan those pallets to load up the truck, or I can print a bill of lading or do whatever I want because I know those pallet definitions. If I don't want to do it while I'm picking, I can also do it while I'm shipping. I can go to the shipping application and I can build up my pallets there, again, to print packing slips per pallet or my bill of lading or whatever else I need. Okay. You don't have to use license plating for shipping, but it can be very handy if you want to track exactly which pallets have which items and those sorts of things. All right. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about here is the inventory count. So this allows us to do either cycle counts or full physical counts. So there's a few different ways we can do it. So what I've done here is I've set up different count teams. So maybe I'm doing a cycle count in the morning, and I've got a few people out there using scanners to do these cycle counts. And this team 2 here, I've told them that there are 12 things they need to go out and find and count. So if I open up this count sheet, and if you're doing paper-based counts today, that's exactly what this is. It's an electronic version of a sheet of items I need to count. So if I open that up, I'll see 12 items I need to find and count in the system. Okay. And that's great if you're doing cycle counts. You can say, count all my produce today, or count all my, product from vendor A today, or count everything in the cooler. You can use whatever criteria you want, and it'll give you a list of items to count. The other way to do it is what I've done for team one. I haven't given them anything to count. I haven't told them what they're supposed to go out and count. What I'm going to do is say, team one, you go count cooler one. You go into cooler one and you just scan everything you find. All right. That way, we're not saying this is what you're expecting to find in the cooler. And what they'll do is they'll just go out and scan everything they expect to find in the cooler. And there might be stuff that's in there that they didn't scan because nobody told them to. This way, we say, you physically verify everything that's in there. We're not telling you what's in there. You're going to tell us what's actually there, and then we'll do a reconciliation. So if I show you how that works, I'll open up that team one sheet. And we're going to go in, and I'm going to, again, we scan the bin that we're counting. And if it's something like a cooler, right, I would scan the bin once, and I'll remember that I'm counting in the cooler. Or if it's racks, I'll scan the rack each time. And then I simply scan the item that I'm counting in that location. And again, you can turn the picture on or off as you see fit. And I enter the quantity that I've counted. That's it, right? So scan bin, scan item, enter quantity. So if I do that again, oops, there we go. Scan the bin, scan the item, and let's just close that. And you'll notice it does bring in that lot number, right? That's important because for this particular item, we're tracking exactly which lot numbers we have in the warehouse. So we count by lot number, and the system is going to tell us if there's any discrepancies in those lot numbers I've counted, right? So if I come in here and I count 900 or 684 pieces, if that doesn't match what the system thinks should be there, it's going to yell at us and give us that information. But that's how we do our inventory count. You scan bin, scan item, enter quantity, and we're done. So it's very quick and easy to do these cycle counts every day, and or full physical counts. So if I'm counting the entire warehouse, you send however many people out there with scanners, they just scan everything they find, and somebody will reconcile it within Business Central. Now, just really briefly, I'll look at team two here. It's exactly the same. The difference is if we generate a list of items to count, it's just going to give us the bin, the item. I'll do exactly the same thing. I'll scan the bin, scan the item, enter the quantity. It'll just update an existing line instead of adding a new line. And this inventory count capability is great for retail as well. So if you do have retail outlets, the ability to go through and count that product, and again, in the retail outlet, you wouldn't have bins, so you wouldn't scan the bin. To go out and count that product in a retail environment, this makes it very, very easy to do. And you give your associates, a little scanner like this that can be shared between multiple stores if you like. And they go out, they use this, they scan everything they find, and you're good. And that's also especially handy if you have the same product in multiple areas. Maybe you have, some chocolate bars or something sitting in the candy area, the candy aisle, but I also have them at the cash register. Well, I can count those in two separate places, and the system will track that for me automatically. So it makes the inventory counting in stores a lot easier, and in the warehouse. Obviously, the warehouse has got a lot more volume. So that's what we're talking about, but any of the stuff I've shown you can be used in the stores, including that inventory inquiry, right? So if you're not just a distribution center, you have the stores, I can come in here and I can scan a barcode in the store and get all that same information, including pricing. If you want to add the pricing in here, availability, all of that kind of stuff, I can use this type of solution in a store to get that type of retail information as well. But let's go back to talking about that inventory count, because I'm going to jump into Business Central here, and we're going to look at those inventory counts. And I just want to show you one real quick thing, because there were questions on traceability and things like that. This is the inventory count that I was working with. So here's the two items I scanned in team one. So team one scanned these items, and we've tracked the lot numbers and everything else. And what we're going to do after the count is done, what the supervisor is going to do is figure out, did we do a good job of that cycle count or full physical count? So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to show all my inventory, and I am actually going to show if there's any items that have problems with lot numbers. Okay, we're going to sort by the dollar amount. So I've done my inventory count. I only scanned 2 items, but we've done our inventory count, and we run this, and it's going to tell us how good our inventory count was. So up here, you can immediately see this was a very terrible inventory count because this first item here, we're short $275,000 of that item. So that's a problem. The next one, we've got an extra $110,000 and so on and so forth. And down here, when we get to this item here, it tells us exactly what issues we've got with the lot numbers. So it's telling me I'm short 22 of this lot number, I'm short 27 of that lot number, but I've got an extra 684 of this lot number. So we can use this to actually reconcile down to the lot number level. And that's important. Again, if you need that traceability all throughout your warehouse, it's important to know which lot numbers you actually have and which ones you don't. So if I post this count, so this is just my reconciliation, but I say, yeah, apply this count to my inventory, it will make these adjustments for those lot numbers automatically for me. Now, I wouldn't want to apply this count now because clearly we've done a terrible job on this inventory count. So the next thing we would do is actually go in there and say, generate a recount sheet for me. And a recount sheet will say things like, anything that's out by more than $100 or anything that's out by more than 5%, automatically add that to a recount sheet. And what that will do is it'll generate a new count sheet for us that only gives us the things we need to double check. So that saves you from having to use a highlighter and post-it notes and things like that to validate your inventory after you've done that inventory count. Okay, and what that does is it also keeps an audit trail, which is great. If you've got auditors coming in or you need that traceability for the lot numbers, it'll show me the original count quantity, the recount quantity, recounts on top of recounts. All of that is tracked in the system to make those cycle counts or full physical counts much quicker and easier in the system. All right, so that's a bit of an overview of, number one, what we went through was, the base Business Central stuff. I didn't spend too much time on it, but to do what we did on the scanner for receiving, as an example, would require me to come in. I've got a purchase order obviously in the system. If I wasn't using, the barcoding, I would come in. I've got my purchase order created here. I would come in, I would release that purchase order, and then I would come in and create a warehouse receipt. And that's what I would use. I would print that out, or I would, if I don't print that out, if I just mark up the vendor's packing slip. After I've done that, I would go into the warehouse receipt, type in everything they've received, post it, and then I would go in and I would create a put away document to put that product away in stock. On the handhelds, it's much simpler. I just find the PO and I start scanning or entering the quantities. Simple as that. Same thing with the picking. To generate a pick and use it on paper can be fairly cumbersome. I would go in, I'd start from the sales order, I'd generate that pick ticket, which I showed you, print it out. They'd write on what they picked, and then I would type that into the system. So that's the first thing we covered, is all the Business Central capability. There's a lot there. If you want to use it with a paper-based approach, it's got a lot of the capabilities that a lot of the warehouses will be able to use and get by on just using a paper-based solution. If that's not sufficient, then you can go to sort of the Express warehouse management solution, which is free. You don't have to talk to anybody to get it or install it. You do have to be on the Business Central cloud though to get it. So if you want a WMS solution and you're running some other ERP system, you just get a Business Central cloud license, you get the Express, and you've got a WMS that can do everything I showed you today, pretty much, for the most part. And then if you want something much more advanced, then you can get, again, Business Central, and you can go with the advanced solution that gets you all the capabilities that you need in a WMS for foods. All right, with that, let's go back to this. Doesn't look like there's any additional questions, but if you do have questions, again, feel free to ask them now. Or if you don't have questions now, if you can't think of them or can't type fast enough, feel free to contact us. So you can go to this email address or go to the website and use the contact form and get a hold of us. And we'll do everything we can to answer those questions for you. All right. So Hector or Gabrielle, any additional, it looks like Hector is no longer there. Any additional things you'd like me to cover before we close off for today?